Yes, please have a seat. Please. Well, Mr. Donaldson, the reason why I'm keeping my voice low is because I can tell that you have a bit of a hangover. Well, yes, you're welcome, Mr. Donaldson. And Mrs. Donaldson, it's good to see you as well. Now, I have to ask, have both of you been doing the exercises that I recommended? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Donaldson, I realize that these exercises might seem silly, but they're a way for the two of you to get closer together. Now, I wouldn't have recommended the wilderness retreat for couples if I didn't think it would be helpful. Believe me, Mr. Donaldson, when I was a slightly younger man, I would go to doctors, and the last thing that they ever took into consideration was whether or not I could afford the treatment or the pills which they prescribed for my particular medical condition. Well, Mr. Donaldson, we spoke about this. I do have a particular medical condition that I'm treating. It doesn't affect my mental health, and it certainly doesn't affect my ability to do my job. We talked about this, Mr. Donaldson. I mean, if you'll notice, your wife isn't surprised. She was there in the room. I spoke with both of you. Well, yes. As I said, I wouldn't have recommended the couple's wilderness retreat for you and your wife if I didn't think it would greatly help your situation. And if I thought that the two of you couldn't afford it, believe me, I know what it's like for a doctor to give me a specialized prescription and then the insurance won't cover it, and then I have to tell them that, well, my insurance isn't that good. However, this isn't about me, it's about the two of you. So, all right, I guess you didn't go on the couple's wilderness retreat. Yes, Mrs. Donaldson, I am aware of the fact that you were eager to go, but your husband was not. Well, to be honest with you, Mr. Donaldson, clearly there's a lot more than just an issue of you're more of a homebody and your wife loves the great outdoors. I mean, there is trust issues. Well, hold on, Mr. Donaldson, hold on. You can't say that the trust issues are completely the fault of your wife just because she happens to be a shapeshifter. Now, Mr. Donaldson, you knew that your wife was a shapeshifter before you married her. All right, Mrs. Donaldson, calm down, calm down. Mr. Donaldson, now that was really uncalled for. It really was. You know for a fact that your shape-shifting wife is a woman. Well, all right. So she wasn't born in a traditional way, but then a lot of my supernatural clients weren't born in the traditional way. That didn't stop you from marrying her, and quite frankly, when it comes to shapeshifters, they are given one gender, and that is the gender that they have for the rest of their existence. Now, your wife was given the gender of female. Even though she's a shapeshifter, no, she cannot grow a penis. And it's not like she's a man pretending to be a woman. Well, let me put it to you this way, Mr. Donaldson. When your son was born, did your wife nurse your son? She did. Well, there you go. Yes, your wife is not a shape-shifting man pretending to be a woman. Could we get past that now? All right, thank you, Mr. Donaldson. I mean, there's clearly trust issues involved from both of you. But it's clear to me that Mrs. Donaldson is willing to work on those trust issues, and she's definitely put in a lot more effort than you have, Mr. Donaldson. Well, I mean, it's true. You canceled the couple's wilderness retreat, and you're telling me it's because you can't afford it. Meanwhile, you live in a large mansion with your wife, and you just recently bought an AMG Mercedes-Benz. How do I know? Because you bragged about it during the last session. Yes, you did. Mr. Donaldson, were you drunk during the last session? Okay, Mrs. Donaldson, please. Okay, Mr. Donaldson, maybe you weren't drunk, but you clearly forgot some of the things you told me. I can tell. So, Mr. Donaldson, what is the biggest trust issue that you have with your wife? Well, again, Mr. Donaldson, you knew she was a shapeshifter when you married her. Well, I'll tell you this, Mr. Donaldson, without violating client privilege, I have had more than a few clients who were shapeshifters, who married individuals who weren't shapeshifters. Shapeshifters cannot just change their look instantly on the spot. It takes sometimes hours of concentration, and oftentimes, from what I've learned from some of my other clients, is that the transformation process can be surprisingly painful. And that is why most shapeshifters nowadays, ever since we found out that various supernatural creatures are in fact real, they prefer not to shapeshift. They prefer to have one look, one body shape. And yes, your wife is gorgeous. She's a 10 out of 10, and that's because she chose to model her look on a supermodel who was also 10 out of 10, and she just changed a couple of things, such as eye color, hair color. Made herself a little bit taller than that supermodel. Mr. Donaldson, you're missing the point. Yes, shapeshifters do have an advantage, but it's not as though your wife is constantly shapeshifting and then spying on you looking like other women. Now, why do you believe she's doing that? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, Mr. Donaldson, I mean, the gray suit jacket look with high heels is very common in the business world. I mean, there's probably tons of women in your office who wear a gray suit jacket with black high heels. Do you think that all of them are your wife? No, of course not. Well, Mr. Donaldson, let me ask you this. Why do you think your wife is spying on you? Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. I see. Mr. Donaldson, you do realize that there are ways that women can spy on their men without attracting attention? I mean, how do you think regular women do it? Well, Mr. Donaldson, I'll give you a perfect example. This was years ago when I worked in the business world before I became a psychiatrist. And I used to work very late nights, and a few cubicles down was another individual who also would oftentimes work very late nights. And every single time he did, his wife would stop by the office, usually with some hot food wrapped up in aluminum foil. Oh, yes. Plenty of hot food for her hard-working husband. Delicious food. He would sometimes share it with me after she left. I mean, she was a magnificent cook. But here's the thing, and I don't think he ever figured it out, but I did. She only stopped by on those nights when he would call her up and say, "Don't wait up, I'm pulling an all-nighter, I won't be home until late." And then she would show up with all that hot, delicious food, usually about half an hour later. Now, Mr. Donaldson, it never occurred to my colleague back then what was actually happening. His wife was checking up on him. His wife was making damn sure that he was there at work, working, pulling an all-nighter. She would show up, and if he was working, pulling an all-nighter, she would happily give him the food and then leave so he could enjoy it. And if she ever showed up and she saw that he wasn't there, which did happen a couple of times, she would ask me where he was. I would tell her, "Oh, he's in the bathroom. I'm sure he'll be back in a moment." And she would stand there and wait. And she had this hateful look in her eye, as if she didn't believe me. But each time he would come out, greet her with a smile, and she seemed so relieved. Yeah. She was using those hot dinners to check on her husband, to make sure he was being faithful and not out with some tramp. That's what she was doing. and she was a normal, average woman, not a shapeshifter, not at all. So you see, sir, there are definitely ways for women to check up on their man without shape-shifting and looking like other women. Well, here's the problem. When it comes to a marriage such as yours, there either is trust or there isn't. Now, clearly, Mr. Donaldson, it is bothering you that your wife is a shapeshifter. But you have to keep something in mind. She can't help that she's a shapeshifter. That's just how she was created. Just like you can't help your background, your ancestry. I mean, you can't blame your wife for the way she was created. That's just not fair. Now, Mr. Donaldson, you either trust your wife or you don't. The fact that you don't trust her and you make it clear that you don't trust her has caused her not to trust you. So this whole thing is just going round and around and around. And the more it does that, the less both of you trust each other. Now, Mr. Donaldson, there is another wilderness couples retreat coming up. We have 5 couples. We need one more, and I think you and your wife would be ideal for it. Well, this one is just like the last one. These are couples who are having trust issues in their marriages where one member happens to be a supernatural creature. My apologies, Mrs. Donaldson, for the use of the word creature. I only meant that as a technical term. Thank you for understanding. Well, one of the individuals happens to be a vampire. We have another individual who happens to be a succubus. And, well, we can get into the details a little bit later, but I'm going to need a commitment from both of you that you're willing to go. Now, here's the thing, Mr. Donaldson, I get it. You're a homebody, and your wife is a very active, outdoors sort of individual. Now, I hate saying this, but I have seen couples break up over that fact. Oh, yes. I have seen married couples break up over that fact. I've seen supernatural couples break up over that fact. I've seen traditionally married men and women break up over that fact. Hell, just this morning, one of the couples that I normally take care of, a lesbian couple, came to me and said, "We can't do this anymore." And I worked with them for 4 years. They loved each other. They enjoyed being with each other. But one of them was a homebody, and the other one was very active and was sick and tired of always sitting at home and not experiencing life like she wanted. So as much as it killed both of them, they broke up. Now, if that were the only issue, all right, but that's not the only issue. The two of you still have severe trust issues that need to be worked out. And I think this retreat would be ideal, this outdoor wilderness retreat for couples only. Now, I hope you'll both consider it. And maybe we can work on the whole outdoor adventure homebody thing during the next session. Well, I understand, Mr. Donaldson. I am a little surprised you didn't cancel this session. And yes, I did keep it very short. But I hope you'll both give serious consideration to that couple's wilderness retreat. All right? All right. I'll see you both next week. Have a wonderful day.